And I'm going to begin by reading the chair statement regarding Open and Public Meetings Act. In accordance with Utah's Open and Public Meetings Act, I have determined that conducting meetings of the Provo City Landmarks Commission with an anchor location such as the council chambers presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present there. These are the facts upon which I have made this determination. The World Health Organization has classified novel coronavirus disease, aka COVID-19, for those of you who have never watched the news in the last 6 months, as a pandemic. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention state that COVID-19 is easily spread from person to person between people who are in close contact with one another. Utah is currently subject to Utah Public Health Order 2020-26, which limits the size of public gatherings and which requires people to wear face coverings and follow social distancing guidelines. Utah County is currently listing as having a high level of coronavirus transmission. Physical distancing measures will be difficult to set up and maintain in the council chambers and other meeting rooms. Therefore, for the next 30 days, all meetings of the Provo City Landmarks Commission will be conducted entirely via electronic means. Meetings are broadcast live and available later on demand at youtube.com/user/Provo Channel 17. Agendas and support materials are available at provo.org/landmarks commission. To make a public comment or to join a meeting via telephone, follow the instructions provided on public notices of each meeting. To send comments to the Provo City Landmarks Commission members or weigh in on current issues, email them at dspublichearings@provo.org. Signed by myself, Matthew Christensen, Landmarks Commission Chair, and Bill Pepperoni, Director of Development Services, November 25th, 2020. Hopefully my little commentary doesn't make that statement null and void. So we are glad to have a quorum and have everybody here. We have just one item to review, and it's the review the updates on the historic Provo booklet discussion and to see where we're at. I know that earlier, I guess last month in November, Jesse sent an email to the commission members. She'd reviewed the booklet and made some comments. I know Susan has as well. So maybe, Jesse, why don't we have you start? Would you like to share any of your comments that you made or any of the things, or maybe you've changed your mind since
So did
you
Susan
emailed it to us?
send some comments? I never received any.
No, she had just shared that she had gone through it, so she can share some of those now. She can share them today.
I don't have any. My email sort of is described my comments.
I'm sorry. What?
Go ahead.
My email described my comments. I think
Oh, okay.
the history guys. I mean, I don't have anything more. That's it. Discuss it.
Okay, very good. Dustin, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say I jotted down some of the questions that Jesse had if we wanted to kind of go over those as a group as opposed to
Yeah.
Why
Why don't you take it away?
So she was just asking about at the beginning of the book, we have the brief history.
Oh, you know what, Dustin, hang on one sec. We probably ought to make sure. One of the things that was great about Diane Christensen when she was the chair is she knew how to run a meeting, and I don't. So why don't we just take a quick roll so everyone can chime in of who's here. So for the record, so Matt Christensen, Commissioner.
Susan Fails.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Jesse Embry.
And then Susan.
Susan Fails.
Jason Bishop.
Jeff Ringer.
Dustin Wright.
Okay. So now that we've gotten that important part out of the way, Dustin, why don't you go through some of those questions that Jesse had sent us?
Yeah, so you'd mentioned, Jesse, about what the approach should be on the brief history in the beginning of the booklet, whether it should be just updated or go through and do something new. And so, I think if there's better information that we want to put in there, I think that's something we could definitely take a look at if that's something you wanted to look at. I don't know what the commissioners feel about going through the brief history, and maybe some of you have read it, and do we want to expand on it, change it? What are you guys' thoughts?
Well,
Go ahead.
I read it yesterday, the booklet again, along with one of the other things that you had sent, Dustin. And
Yeah.
it was odd, but when I read it, the paragraph that appears just before it describes the Landmark Commission seemed to me to be the front paragraph that ought to start out the history. And I'm certainly not opposed to doing a rewrite on the history itself, although there's a lot of really good information there. And I thought it was fairly well done. The other comment in the introduction is that under the description of the Landmarks Commission, it describes us as nominating homes, which they did when they first formed the Landmarks Commission. The commission is the one that nominated almost most of the homes that are on there now, rather than an individual doing that or a homeowner doing that. So that certainly needs to be edited in terms of that introduction.
Technically, we can still nominate, right?
Yeah.
We just don't nominate after some bad experiences.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, if there's some willing people that want to go and take a stab at that, we could definitely review that once you've got something. If Jesse and Susan want to work on that, that would be helpful.
It would probably be better if one worked on the introduction, I think.
Okay.
And I'd let Jesse do it.
I would really work on the introduction. I guess the question that I did have is, do we want so much about Knight and Taylor in it?
I don't think we need the big controversy, making, but I really thought that was a relatively minor piece in the intro as I read through it. But I wouldn't object to that being removed.
Or even maybe just whittled down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it serves its role in any kind of written work. You need something to frame the argument around, to frame the introduction around. I think it was simply used as a framing device. If there's another one or a better one, it doesn't have to stay, but it is nice to give it some kind of meat to hang on.
Yeah, I agree. Susan, you had mentioned Abraham Smoot and Brigham's conversation.
I don't remember the conversation. I don't have my piece I can't get to it right now. And I didn't print it off. So, but there was an apocryphal. I think, Jesse, you had mentioned something about Brigham Young didn't send Smoot to
the pioneers.
Provo.
Yeah.
But there's that there's an apocryphal story, and maybe you have it in front of you. His response was something about he gave him choices of going to, Texas, Provo, or hell. And the response was he'd rather go to hell than Provo. But it's apocryphal. I don't believe, but it's kind of amusing too at the same time.
Well,
so.
I think it's in fact, I like the story so much. I made some artwork a few years ago. But I don't know if you guys can all see that.
No.
That's cute.
The picture of Brigham that says you can either go to Provo or you can go to hell. So I like that story quite a bit. It was shared by Ernest Wilkinson in a BYU devotional. I like Ernest Wilkinson's version of the story. So anyway, but yeah, some cute things like that would actually be kind of fun to include about the founding and settling of Provo. Anyway.
And another thing she brought up was about the specific write-ups for each of the sites in there. If those are good as they are, if they should have I don't know, maybe more story behind some of them. I feel like I'm open to whatever, you come back with. If you're researching a site and there's an interesting story that could fit kind of in this context, and maybe not, I guess we're looking kind of at the layout too, right? So each site probably could have a lot written about it possibly, but if we're kind of honing in on some shorter pieces of that, and then there's somewhere that people could go to get more information on that. Maybe that's another thing we look at. If we're also talking about an online version of this, maybe that's an option to click on a link for more information. But the print version keeps it somewhat consistent with the rest of the layout, I guess, if that's helpful to. I don't know, what are your other thoughts on
Susan?
stuff?
Dustin, I went through every one of the 71 entries yesterday, and what I did was identify where I saw something that probably needed to be revised or questioned. For example, in a number of instances, they say, since such and such date, there have been so many owners of this. Well, this was written, in the 90s?
It's almost 20 years old.
Yeah, and so there's been some changes. So those kinds of things, and I've identified all of those that I noticed as I read through them. But I thought that the balance was pretty good because in the introduction, they talked specifically about architecture. And I thought that in most instances, the balance between the story and the architecture was pretty good. It doesn't mean you can't add or change things, but I thought that the balance was pretty good.
Susan, what did you feel about the consistency across homes? Did you think that the format of the entries was suitably consistent across homes?
I felt so. However, you'll have an inconsistency in that some of the homes that are there's much less information to be had. And so you have length differences, but I think that's probably because they couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, and I think as we look to add new sites, there's a lot of those will probably have even less information, would be my guess. Ones that aren't on a register, that haven't been nominated, probably won't have that.
Excuse me, Dustin, you sent out 3 things to us after the last meeting, and the one of them had color photos, and it had write-ups, and it listed whether they were on the register or whether they were of interest. And actually, I made a list and identified all the ones that weren't on the register that would be of interest. And the write-ups in that group they were quite good. Who made that list? Who did that list?
Matt Taylor, when he was with the city. But yeah, I think those, from what I gather, it looks like those were ones they did while they were doing this book. Mm-hmm. And then maybe they were ones that they decided would make the book too big, or whatever I don't know what the scope was at the time that was done.
Yeah.
Some of them from the Franklin neighborhood that I wrote for a tour that we had.
Okay.
I personally like the inclusion of the architectural information, since that's technically what, as a landmarks commission, that's what we're trying to preserve. Is the technical side is the architecture, and then there's the narrative side of the stories. And so I think where we get a nice balance. But I certainly think they should all at least have the architectural information. And it'd be terrific. And if we can't find the history, maybe we can ask Jeff to make it up for us or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm good at making stuff up. No, I agree with Matt. I think Matt's point's great. And I think any write-ups we do, we should future-proof them in the sense that we don't rely on a lot of current statistics that have to be updated every 5 or 10 years. That's not really necessary for this book, but people want to know about the history of this home, how it came to be. So I think that's where our focus should be.
Yeah, I think any of those instances where it says how many owners have lived in the home since, I don't know that is. I mean, we're baking into it another edit that we'll have to make.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think that we should have owners that are, people might know something about, but we don't just need to list owners because we know several owners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessa, you were going to say something?
No, I just think that listing how many people have lived in there is largely irrelevant because we're, basing it mainly on story and architecture. So I agree with that. It should be left out. It's not the home's fault that it's had a lot of the owners. So yeah.
The other thing that I think that Susan had mentioned in some of her write-ups of the specific homes is, there's obviously things that we can change with, like the playhouse that's now the church on, what is it, 200 North or 100 North and 100.
Oh, the theater, yeah.
200, things like that. We obviously need to update with, I think, what its current use is if we can, especially if it's a non-private home type of structure.
Is that to be,
sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
is that to be in the church again?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The problem is that because things change, you won't want to have to keep updating the booklet because something changed.
Right. Dustin, what's the next question?
And then I think she was just talking about the maps and things like that. And that kind of leads into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about too, making sure the map format looks good and the numbering, I think, was what you were talking about. And that's something I think we'll definitely update.
So it seems to me one thing we could do this is decide about how many houses we want in this booklet. And then all of us think about which houses we want in the booklet. All of these, maybe some other ones.
Yeah.
So
do you want to try to limit it to go ahead, Matt.
No, Jason, you go. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you want to try to limit it to a specific number, like the top 50 architectural and historic houses in Provo, so it's like a soundbite? Or do you want to, because right now we have how many, 70? We have quite a few.
71.
Yeah, 71. Is that important, that we have less or more concise or like a more tailored number?
I think if we could do, in my mind, 100 would be cool if we actually came up with that. But, we could work that into the title, or we could whittle it down to 50 or,
Yeah.
But that's not really.
I mean, 100's cool too. It isn't. I'm just wondering if that's what you guys think on that. If the number is important enough.
Well, I think they were all on the register. That's why they were included in the booklet originally. Now we're talking about adding homes that aren't on the register.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think 100 sounds great, but I still think you have to think about publishing costs and the length of this,
Right.
and people carrying it around in that.
Well, and who's going to write it all up? Susan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one thing I've been pondering a lot about, and I made a map here, kind of show, still got a lot to do. I don't know if that shows up well to you or not, those
Can you
colors.
zoom in? Oh, there's a lot on the outside too. So are the blues, what are the blues versus the yellows versus the greens?
So the yellow, I took just all the ones that were in that spreadsheet I sent out from the East Central Historic District.
Oh, I see.
So,
yeah.
I got a lot to do on the map. I was just trying to get stuff down so we could kind of get a visualization of how many properties we're looking at so far. And I think that number still could grow as we look at some other things. But so that's what those are. Those are ones that are shown in that district as ones that are eligible or significant to the historic district, and ones that could be eligible to be on a register. And then the light blue ones are from Matt's, that link he sent out to that spreadsheet. That was all the addresses of everything in blue.
So those are like all the ones that we've had on the tours and things like that?
Ones on the tours and everything that's not on the register as well is what we're showing there. So I'll further refine the map to show ones that are on the register and try to make it cleaner. But I wanted to do that so that we could maybe divide out, break out some sections and maybe each committee or commissioner take a smaller area instead of trying to go look at all of them and see, if you go look at 10, 15, whatever, however many sites it ends up being. Then back on Matt's spreadsheet, I put some extra columns on the side. It just said something like, put a scale of 1 to 10, how important, 10 being the most important of ones that we would want to make sure get in the book, or 1 being it's not something we really need in the book. Right. So you can go, if you take a look, get a little more in depth on each of these.
Do we want to break those up? Should we divide those amongst us? So we're each going to see like 6 or 7 and giving a rating and coming back to the next meeting when.
Yeah, that's.
So there's not so many for one person to do.
Yeah.
To break it up.
Yeah, we can break it up for sure. And like I said, I got a little bit more work to do on the map before I'll divvy that out. But if everyone's willing to go look at a section of the city, that way you're maybe just driving around a small area or walking around a small areas that everyone feel.
Yeah,
I'm happy to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm happy with that approach. If you just want to give us some homework, here's of houses to go see, I'm happy to follow up on that.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Justin, if you'd be willing, I don't know what your bandwidth is like, but could you, I like the map. It's interesting just to see where the distribution of the yellow and the blue and the green is. That's fascinating. The kind of, obviously on the east side has been much more, there's been a focus on the east side, which I think we've all recognized in the past, but do we want to look at every single one of these homes, or just the ones that are non-register and eligible? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, all of the above, I guess.
Okay.
I was thinking non-registered, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
since we already have the other ones registered, I think they kind of have to be in there if they're registered landmarks.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
want to include the ones that are already on the register. So Dustin, maybe if you could break it up into 4 sections of the non-register and significant or eligible, and then just assign blocks, and we'll just go do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what you'd be doing is you just take those 10 or 15 sites, whatever it is, and maybe just jot down, okay, this site is a 10, it's got to go in the book, and then you go back to the spreadsheet after you're done with all that and just put your number, and then we can go through once everyone's done that and say, okay, we've got 110 that we need to narrow down.
Do we have a photographer to go ahead?
What were you saying?
Are we going to photograph the ones that we choose amongst ourselves after our reconnaissance?
So yeah, after we've maybe gotten everyone's scores back on them and we narrow down what we want to do, then we'll jump into kind of the next phase, which is going to be photos and digging up the history and all of that. Once we know which sites we want to put in the book that we don't currently have. So that's kind of my thoughts. I don't know if you guys have other ideas.
Jason, what might be kind of interesting on your question on photography, and I don't know, I mean, just as we're going around and rating them ourselves, and I don't know if we all have this ability, but I mean, I'd be interested to see if you're willing or if you want to, at our next meeting, as we go through kind of what each person's rating is, if we were to take a quick picture of them with our cell phones of each house.
I agree. It's a good idea. Does everyone have
the ones that are more, at least the ones that we're rating higher? We don't have to do that, but that might be an interesting way for us to help kind of figure things out.
I agree.
How would we share that with others?
Well, we just send it to Destin, and he could include it in the presentation for the meeting, like he has with the map.
Yeah, and I could make maybe a Google, what's it called? Google
Drive or something, or?
Yeah, folder that everyone can add stuff to. I don't know if that's, I'll look into
I'm
that.
horrible at that stuff. It's so awful trying to do technology.
Well,
I could try. I'll try.
more complicated than we have to as well, which I
You want to email
recognize.
pictures of the ones that are on the top tier of what you see? to
My
me, and
email, my phone will not send it via email. I've tried and tried, but Google I can do. I've done that from my
or
phone.
if you want to give me the address, if you just mark them on that sheet, I can go in and look. You know, the county has pictures of all those, so we can.
That's right.
They won't. That'll give us hopefully a good idea of what it is, or we can pull up Street View if we need to. But if we're talking lots and lots of sites, then maybe that could be a lot for a meeting like this.
Sure.
But if we are maybe only looking at adding 20 or something, then yeah, I think that would be something we could put together to do that.
Okay. Jeff, what do you think on that, or Jesse?
No, I think this is a really good approach. This is a topic for another day. But as you look at this map, it's clear that we are focusing on pre-war Provo right now.
Yeah.
We have significant post-war architecture that has now passed the 50-year designation for historic status. So at some point, we're going to have to discuss all the post-war, the 50s and 60s architecture in Provo, some of which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Free streets and Grandview. Yeah, I agree.
And on that note too, there's been a lot of talk about like mid-century modern and things like that. And we just went and did a little tour of the Congregational Church on 2nd North and University, the really pointy roof.
Oh, the community church. Yeah.
The community church there. They're looking to try to save that building. It's getting pretty weathered with the roofing and stuff on there. So they've got kind of a group together, and they were talking to me about, seeing what we can do about mid-century modern and kind of adding some of that to our stuff that we both review and put out there for.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I think it's time for us to think about that after this project. It's too much to bite off in relation to this project, but we have homes that were built here in the Provo in the 50s and 60s that were featured in Architectural Digest and Sunset Magazine and others that are really great examples of mid-century architecture. So at some point, we're going to have to get serious about that stock of residences and buildings as well.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I love mid-century. That's awesome. I think we should do that for sure. Even like a separate brochure, which like all the mid-century in Provo would be awesome. Having a mid-century modern separate brochure even.
Yeah.
Susan?
I had a question about, there's at least 2 structures that have been raised since that booklet, Hotel Roberts and St. Francis. How are we going to deal with that in terms of the booklet?
At the last meeting, I wanted to take it off and I was vetoed down.
Yeah, I want to keep them in. I think we can include them in an appendix or something.
Okay.
Maybe if homes lost, or have a section for homes, homes remembered, something like that at the very end.
I mean, there's certainly a place we could do a significant appendix on lost architecture in Provo, the mental hospital, the original building there, the original train station. I mean, we have a lot of great lost architecture.
Yeah.
Fire station.
Fire station. It's for me, it's important to remember them, but it's also a little heartbreaking. So I don't know how much how much time we want to spend reminding everybody of what we've lost, unless it serves the purpose of motivating people to not lose more.
Exactly. I think that's really important, actually, because it reminds people that if we don't do something, then you're going to lose more and more, and it's a travesty.
I think it's a self-guided tour. If you can't see something, people might be would be that kind of weird tour.
I think Jesse makes a pretty good point there. So maybe if we want to continue to include it, we do it in such a way that it makes it very clear that these properties are no longer available to be seen. Something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the write-up of that site, it would say built in this date, demolished in this date.
Yeah.
No longer there.
And we might even want to have it in a different section of the booklet. I don't know. Those are decisions that can come later, but
yeah.
Okay.
Matt?
Yeah.
I had another question. The booklet now contains only homes and sites that have been, that are on the landmarks register, and some others are also on the national register. As we add new homes and new sites, do we want to have some code or something that designates whether they are on the register or not at this
I think
point?
so. I was actually even thinking like on my computer at home here, I've got the map of the booklet open on my monitor, and the numbering on the map, at least, it's a black circle with the white text for the number.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, like on the map, for instance, maybe we have for the homes or buildings that are not on the register, it's a white circle with black text.
Black, oh,
And then on the actual description of the home or the building in the booklet, we could have some sort of icon or something that designates, so we don't have to write not
Yeah.
on the register.
You don't want to take space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but just a little icon or some
Yeah.
cheat that we can use. That's what I think we ought to do, but I don't know if that's what we'll do.
I like
Yeah, when
that
we get
idea.
to the formatting and everything, we'll make sure that there's a consistent way to really see what's on, what's not on, beyond what's demolished, all that. We can probably find a good way to illustrate that throughout the booklet.
Yeah.
And Dustin will also, I trust the city will do this. Gary McGinn and others will be looking at this kind of thing, but there are some legal ramifications also. We just can't take photos of homes and put them in a book because we like them, especially when it's privately owned property. So I presume all of that will have to be buttoned down somehow. If it's on the register, that implies some consent for this kind of thing. If it's not on the register, I don't think we can assume consent.
Okay. Yeah, I can look into all that as well.
That's Jeff's version of the mic drop because he just left.
That was Jeff's version of they're doing some construction in the ASB and I got to close my door.
Dustin, what other questions have you got? Is there anything else that? Or I guess not even questions, but just topics or items.
Yeah, I think that was really, if we can kind of start honing in on which sites we actually want to do so that we, get a number of how many there are, which will help with then getting into the formatting, and then B, we can start researching the text and getting some historic images.
The write-ups
We can
and stuff. Yeah.
go out and do some current photos and things like that. So yeah, it seems like right now if we can just figure out exactly what we want in there as far as which sites, that's the first step. And if we, like I said, I'll work on getting a map laid out and divided up and send it out kind of as homework for you guys, and we'll get those all scaled and see which ones come out on top, and then we can meet again and go over those.
So
Since they're all from the east side.
Okay.
So if it's okay with everyone, then why don't we plan on at the next commission meeting in January reporting on those scales of 1 to 10 or however we want to grade the homes and talking about that. And so maybe we can come to some decisions about what's going to be included in the booklet.
Okay.
Any nays? No.
Matt,
Yeah.
would you like me to send out the first of, I could send both of those things that I put together that shows where I felt like we needed to adjust in the booklet, the write-ups, and also from that Matt Taylor list, the homes that were not in the booklet that I thought might be valuable. I don't even mind going to look at those.
Yeah, if you'd send that to us, I think that would be helpful for everyone to see.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
I'm just trying to think about timing with the holidays and everything. I'm going to be gone for a bit of.
Yeah, you've got we're giving you some homework.
I'm not sure if January I'll have stuff to you guys in time to give you guys enough time to have it ready for January.
What about February?
February would work better.
Okay.
If gives everyone a little bit more time to.
That would be good.
Yeah, you've got a lot of stuff that we're asking you to do for this next one. So should we go ahead and, unless something comes up, let's even forego the meeting in January, since we won't have anything to report on yet. Of course, unless there's a community member that brings some business for us. So
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's
Awesome.
fine.
does anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up or discuss?
I just wanted to say thanks for the gift card for Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We haven't gone
Thank
there yet, but we're excited to.
Yeah,
Thank you.
likewise.
I haven't got there yet today.
Touche.
Wednesday? Okay.
Yeah, my
That is-
4-year-old actually saw the card and he wandered around with it for about a week. Couldn't find it because he liked it. He just liked how it looked. Anyway, okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then let's adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you all in February. And until then, have a happy New Year and a Merry Christmas.
Merry
Thank
Christmas,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thanks,
See ya.
Justin.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.